And welcoming everyone to this edition of Football 24/7 with NFL insider John McMullen, our 2021 Eagles season recap on the day after Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bring a screeching end to the Philadelphia Eagles season. A lot to discuss. John McMullen back from his trip in Tampa, covering the Birds all season long. Johnny Mac, great job by you. Great work last night on the live post-game show. A lot of coverage between the markers, Johnny Mac, since this season began months and months and months ago.
Yeah, it's a journey. That's kind of what Nick Sirianni talked about. Jalen Hurts talked about. It really is. I mean, if you think about where things started in training camp and even before training camp in the offseason, when Nick Sirianni was hired, through the joint practices with the Jets up in North Jersey, and then the 2-5 start, and then being able to turn the season around. More than what was expected. So I don't expect people to harp on the positive after performing so poorly in Tampa. But look, they were up against it. We know that's the reigning Super Bowl champions. Yeah, they were a little bit banged up, but they still had Tom Brady, who, I joked, unless Father Time was finally going to stop hitting the snooze button when it came to Tom Brady and he showed up on a random Sunday in Central Florida, the Eagles were going to have a tough time in this game. And that's how it shook out. But, the number I kept talking about all week, whether it was with you, Krause, or Birds 365 with Jody Mack, was 46 versus 1. One quarterback was starting his 46th postseason game. The other was starting his first. And, oh, by the way, the head coach was coaching his first as a head coach postseason game. That's tough to overcome. And it proved to be tough to overcome. You would have liked to have seen, I think, a little bit more fight. And I don't even want to look at the final box score. People have seen it. It wasn't that close. I mean, this was a beatdown of epic proportions when it was 31-0. The garbage time yardage and points, that's fool's gold. So the Eagles are better than what we thought they were going to be, but they're far off from being a contender. And that's what Howie Roseman, you can't get caught up in saying we made the playoffs, we're close. Making the playoffs is great, but the Eagles aren't close, and they have to realize that.
Johnny Mac, let's start with the head coach, Nick Sirianni. I found myself yesterday very confused in terms of what I was watching, because it looked to me like the game plan reverted back to the opening 4 or 5 weeks of the season. And I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand. Yeah, I couldn't understand why.
It was a little disappointing. I think Derek Gunn asked me on the post-game show on JAKIB Media and 6ABC.com, were you more disappointed in the head coach or the quarterback? And those guys are always going to get more of the blame when the Eagles lose than everybody else. And on the other side of the coin, they understand they get more of the props when they win. So it's not just about the coach and the quarterback. But if you're pinning me down, I would say coach more than quarterback. And Jalen played poorly. That's not to dismiss how he played, but yeah, I didn't like the game plan at all. I did not like the game plan at all. From the coin toss, I didn't like the game plan. I knew they were going to do it because Nick Sirianni has told me, look, we're going to defer. We're always going to defer because that's the way the conventional wisdom is if you win the toss, defer, you try to score at the end of the first half, bridge the second, third quarters with scores. And when you do that, you win 95% of football games. That's why coaches do it. But, I was talking to Nick Sirianni last week about feel for the game. All games are different. All games are different. And you got to have a feel for this game. That team's more explosive. You can't play from behind. You want to start with the lead. So if you want to start with the lead, what better way to do that is win the coin toss, take the football, and go down the score. All of a sudden, now, maybe the Eagles take the football in that type of situation, go 3 and out, and they have to punt the football. Aaron Cepas, another issue. He's been a disaster late in the season. Bad punt. Maybe Tampa Bay scores. Maybe it doesn't make a of difference. But I would have tried it. Let's look at the positive side, the other side of the coin. Let's say you go on a 13-play, 75-yard drive. You're able to punch it in. All of a sudden, so many good things happen. You have momentum. You're feeling good about yourself. You've shortened the game. You've kept the football away from Tom Brady. You're playing from the lead. You're doing exactly what you want to do. But by deferring, and people are going to jump on Jonathan again and say, we got to stop. You got to stop him. Okay. Again, 46 playoff games, 35 playoff wins since 1958. 1958, Joe Krause. There are two franchises with more playoff wins than Tom Brady. Entire franchises. He's got more playoff wins than the 30 other franchises. And oh, by the way, one of those two teams, the New England Patriots, where Tom won 33 of their 37, whatever it is. What it's what Jonathan Gannon's got to go stop Tom Brady. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Try to keep the football away from the greatest quarterback of all time. So from the coin toss, I thought it was a bad plan. Then we get into the actual game plan on the offensive side of the football. Yes, the wide receiver screens, which haven't worked all year. Back to too much RPO action.
But why, John? Why do you do that? There's that body of work, and I think you identified, maybe it was the Las Vegas game when the transformation started.
It was actually the Tampa Bay game,
or the Tampa Bay game. So that body of work, when the best asset on this football team, your offensive line, is going to work and you're running the football for big numbers, for record numbers. And then all of a sudden, you don't do it. You stop it.
They tried, that part. I'm gonna defend Nick a little bit, and I want to open up the game book here, because the first drive, it was 2 runs. It was a 3 and out. Then they ran the football 2 more times in the second drive and weren't able. They came out trying to run the football. Todd Bowles, and this is, you have to question the rest of the league. Todd Bowles is obviously one of the best defensive coordinators in this league. He loaded up that box, man. He was daring. He came out and he said, if he could have stood on the 50-yard line and Todd's an understated guy. He wouldn't do that. But he could have screamed from the 50-yard line, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to throw the football outside. Because, I mean, he clogged up with 8 people in the box and Vita Bea being the middle of that. And they were just not going to let the Eagles run the football. And they played single high safety. They played corners, man-to-man, and they were injured at corner. And they said, throw the football. If you can throw the football, maybe we'll come out of this and change. And the Eagles couldn't throw the football.
And they couldn't run. And they couldn't run the ball.
It's understandable why they couldn't run. Nobody can run against that box. But, you know, when you have that many people and they were run blitzing, they were doing everything. They were throwing the kitchen sink at the Eagles running game.
John, how many yards did the Eagles run against Tampa Bay back in October? If you remember.
I can look it up. They barely remember. Miles Sanders had 1 carry in the first half of that game. So it was very similar to this game in the fact that if you're just going to look at the black and white of the box score, it doesn't look that bad. But it was bad. A lot of garbage time yardage in that game. A lot of garbage time yardage in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar. They didn't run the football at all, and they ran it well late in the game when Miles got a little hot in the first game. But they had a different philosophy back then. As I said, that was the change in their philosophy. That game was a Thursday night game. They had the mini bye. They came off of that bye, went to Las Vegas, and if you remember, early in that game, they were running the football from under center with Miles Sanders, and they were doing it effectively. But Miles got hurt early in that game, was carted off, so it was sort of a delayed start, and it really kicked in the Detroit game the week after that. But larger point being, Tampa wasn't playing defensively, and that's one of the great things about Todd Bowles. If he throws you a fastball one time, he's not going to come back and throw you a fastball the second time. He's going to throw a curve, and he threw him a curve. And he said flat out, you're not going to beat us running the football. You're going to have to throw the football outside, and the Eagles couldn't do it. Now, there you can start blaming the quarterback a little bit, but you can also blame the coaching staff because they were way too late trying to figure that out, trying to adjust to that. Look, if you're seeing boxes like that and you're seeing single high safety and you're seeing man-to-man coverage on Devontae Smith and he doesn't get the football till there's a minute left in the half and the game is essentially over, that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
And the blame for that is Nick Sirianni.
Well, the blame for that is both, but I would put it more on the coach when you have a young quarterback because you're trying to micromanage a young quarterback. In other words, again, we'll use the dichotomy. Tom Brady runs the Tampa Bay offense from the line of scrimmage. You see him go fast. You see him go slow. You see him put the foot on the gas and they go, hurry up. That's all Tom Brady. He runs the show from the field. The Eagles don't have that. I mean, Jalen does what the coaching staff tells him to do, as most young quarterbacks do. So it's up to Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen and Kevin Patullo to point out to Jalen Hurts, it's what you're doing on the sidelines. When you have the Microsoft Surfaces and you have the pictures and everybody's looking at it, you sit the quarterback down and you say, look at the aerial view. Look at the box. Look at how they're covering. If you see this, do this. Eagles didn't do this.
Or they tried to do this, and this was as bad as that, right?
Well, in the second half, obviously, when they started throwing the football, yeah, it wasn't good from Jalen Hurts' perspective. I mean, it wasn't good. But that shouldn't be a surprise. They're not equipped. We talked about it. They're not equipped. I don't know how many times I've said this. They're not equipped to play from behind. And once they're down by 3 possessions against a team, remember, this is not Jake Fromm. This is not Garrett Gilbert. And this is my biggest criticism of Nick Sirianni. And I mentioned this on the post-game show as well. You have to understand your opponent. If you get down 17-0 to Tampa Bay, actually, the Eagles did a pretty good job at that point defensively. They held Tampa Bay down for a little bit until Jalen Reagor's muff punt, and then it was 24-0, game over. It was really over before that, but they had that little bit of a spark defensively, where there were a number of drives that they stopped Tampa Bay. But from the larger perspective, you can say, okay, we're down 10-0 to the Washington football team. You can be comfortable in saying Garrett Gilbert's playing quarterback, even if Taylor Heineke's playing quarterback. All right, if we get our you-know-what together defensively, we can hold this team to 10 points. We can come back and win that football game. You get down against Tampa Bay, you're not going to stop them. They're going to keep coming. And they could have probably scored, they took their foot off the gas. They could have probably scored 45 if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know that. You have to know your opponent and understand this is a team you can't play from behind on. And whatever the final number was, and I'll look it up real quick, 43. 43 times Jalen Hurts threw the football. He threw the football more than Tom Brady. Eagles can't win that game. If you would have told me that before, I would have told you that's a blowout. That's a blowout. And it was a blowout.
Football 24/7 with John McMullen, our 2021 Eagles season recap with John McMullen live on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and continue to subscribe. We have a lot to talk about over the next few months. My goodness, the season's over, yet it's just getting started. Johnny Mac, one last question on Nick Sirianni and include the coaching staff in this response. Are they or were they better as a staff by the end of the season compared to when it started? Or was that final 6 games, not counting the Dallas game, fool's gold in itself because the opponents were so bad?
Well, to a certain, that depends on the individual. Fool's gold, so to speak. And, if you thought the Eagles were ready to compete with a team like Tampa Bay because of that final stretch, yeah, that's fool's gold. That's the definition of fool's gold. They played 7 games against playoff teams this season. They lost all 7. They not only lost all 7, they lost those 7 games by an average of about 13.6 points. So essentially 2 touchdowns. Now, you can use week 18 as an outlier. As you mentioned, Dallas played their starters or most of their starters who were available. The Eagles played their junior varsity, so to speak, and got beat by 25. So that skews it. But if you want to take the game against the Chargers, who just missed the playoffs on the AFC side, so they're a good team but not a playoff team, they got blown out in that one as well. So anytime they played a good football team, they got put in their place. But, you know, the vast majority of this league is mediocre or below. And the good news is they beat, for the most part, a couple outliers, most notably the loss to the Giants, which was probably the worst loss of the season. They beat the teams they were supposed to beat. That's a positive. That's a really big positive in the NFL when you beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Because every year everybody's saying, well, the Eagles had a soft schedule. Yeah, they had a soft schedule at the end. They didn't have a soft schedule at the beginning, which is why they started 2-5. So you give them credit for persevering, because things could have went off the rails at that point. You could have given up. They didn't do that. They had a favorable schedule. They took advantage of it. They beat the teams they were supposed to beat, again, for the most part. But they didn't compete with the good teams on their schedule. It's fair to say that. So if you thought beating Jake Fromm and Garrett Gilbert and Taylor Heineke and Trevor Siemian and on meant they could compete with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, that's fool's gold.
Well, I didn't want to see Doug Peterson fired. And after I compartmentalize what the 2021 season turned out to be, I almost feel as though Doug was fired for ending up exactly where he would have ended up in the playoffs with this same roster. I don't think Sirianni, as the CEO of the staff, did anything at all. And that doesn't make him a bad guy, but he's
a rookie head coach, and I'm on record, and I constantly say, first of all, I like Nick personally. I don't think the Eagles should have fired Doug Peterson. I said that 100 times. I'll say it 100 more. I mean, the guy won him a Super Bowl. He deserved the opportunity to have his own staff. He wanted Press Taylor to be the offensive coordinator. Fans will get upset by that. He wanted Matt Burke to be the defensive coordinator. Fans get upset by that. Jeffrey Lurie got upset by that. He didn't want that. But he earned the right to do it. Then if he failed, then okay, all right. If you want to move on, fine. But he should have been given that opportunity. Here, I mean, where are you in the fact that you have a young rookie coach learning on the job, and he learned and he improved as the time went on? Jonathan Gannon, I've never seen a bigger disconnect in my life. He got a third interview request today, for people who don't know.
Why?
The Houston Texans.
But why? I don't understand it.
Because he's well respected around the league. I've been telling people this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they all owe me an apology.
But what does that mean, John? When you say, well, if you're respected for what you do in life, you've earned it by what you've either been able to accomplish or how you do it. Period. End. Anything else is fake news. It's not reality. Has Jonathan Gannon earned that respect from peers based on what he's done as the defensive coordinator of this team?
Well, he's earned the respect of being a coach in this league for about 15 years now. But and he's very young, so people don't realize that. But beyond that, he's only been a defensive coordinator in a lot of ways for 1 year. And by the way, this was the 10th ranked defense in the NFL, number 10 of 32. Again, context is important in this league because I don't think people realize what's going on in the rest of the NFL, but because they get very focused in on one team. But if you don't have personnel, so people around the league look at the personnel on the Eagles' defensive side of the ball, and they see Jonathan Gannon get that team to number 10 in this league, and they say, whoa, look at what happened to New England in the playoffs. You're talking about earned respect. As far as coaches go, who's earned more respect than Bill Belichick?
Right.
If you don't have the talent, you can't win in this league. Mike Tomlin, 15 seasons in the NFL as a head coach, never had a losing season. Not one losing season. Look at what happened to him in the playoffs. Didn't have the talent to compete with Kansas City. Coaching is like anything else. It's a sliding scale. The fact that this team had the 10th ranked defense in the NFL is astonishing. But beyond, coaching is also a little bit like players in the fact that you're evaluating. When we say Devontae Smith has a chance to be a great receiver in this league, well, he's not Devontae Adams right now. He's not whoever you want to throw out there, Stephon Diggs right now. Some of the great receivers, you saw one of them yesterday, Mike Evans. He's not Mike Evans right now, but he's got that potential. People in the NFL are looking at Jonathan Gannon the same way. He's got the potential to be a big-time coach in this league because he's a great communicator and he understands defensive football. And he's overachieved with what he has.
But did he overachieve in those 7 games that they lost against playoff teams? And when they were 0-7, were they 10? How did the defense rank up against the better teams in the league that they played on the schedule? Significantly better or significantly worse?
Significantly worse, but I would tell you this, Krause, name the coach. Let's use Tom Brady again, since that's who we're talking about. Guess what? When you play Tom Brady, you tend to do a lot worse than when you play an average or below average quarterback. From everybody, from Bill Belichick on down. Bill obviously had him for all those years, but all the great coordinators, you play great quarterbacks, you're going to have more trouble. And the other games count as well. So when insert name does something against a bad team, look, I don't understand. Personally, I don't understand the disconnect of Philadelphia and their hatred of a coach that has 3 interviews set up to be a head coach in this league. You look at Nick Sirianni, he got 1. You look at Brandon Staley, I don't think Jonathan Gannon is going to get a head coaching job in this cycle, but you never know. If you would have asked me, is Nick Sirianni going to get one? I would have said no, but he got in the room with Jeffrey Lurie and he wowed him. All it takes is wowing one person, one owner, and Jonathan can communicate. So he could wow somebody. And all of a sudden, you're going to be starting over again. And you don't want to be starting over again. So whether Eagles fans know it or not, they better hope they don't have to start over again because it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
Football 24/7 with John McMullen, live across the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, our 2021 Eagle season recap. We did not even get into conversation tonight about the quarterback, about Jalen Reagor, about the 3 draft picks, the biggest draft in the history of the franchise. We didn't even get close to any of that, Johnny Mac, and we're out of time.
Off-season, baby. I always say, Krause, for people that don't know, the off-season is busier than the regular season.
Yes, indeed. That's going to do it for our live edition tonight here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, Football 24/7 with NFL insider John McMullen. Let me be the first to say, a great job by you, Johnny Mac. Well done. What a journey. What a season. A lot of miles for you. A lot of articles. A lot of broadcasts. A lot of stories. Great stuff by you. Appreciate you, Johnny Mac. Well done.
Thank you, Krause. Appreciate all the listeners, JAKIB Media YouTube page, 6ABC, everybody, all the platform. And we've grown so much. I think I did the math. It was like 500 to 5,000%. So like, share, and subscribe.
Good stuff. On that note, we'll say goodbye. I'll remind everybody to stay right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. It's a premiere with Dan Cilio and his conversation with Gary Cobb coming up next on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Good night.